just following all of the strategies that Palak put in place really helped me stay organized and move things forward. Because I think I knew what I wanted to do, but now it's like I have a process and I stick to that process. And if anything outside of that process, I may be able to bend, but I don't have to because I have a process and it works.
Hey, this is Niti, and what you're about to hear today is a very special episode with one of the members from our portfolio program.
We call these Sensei Sessions. These interviews are designed to give you a perspective about what you can achieve with the right strategies and execution.
I hope you enjoy this episode, and for free resources, check out our show notes section to see how you can build and scale your portfolio.
Time now for our Sensei Session with Hairat Babaloa, and an opportunity to hear how someone who started in the program has turned their portfolio into a stream of income. It's really incredible. I mean, you are an investor. Hairat, thank you for joining us today and for sharing your story and for being a part of this. Let's get started though, and just let people know where you live, what you do outside of real estate, and how you got into this community.
Definitely. So earlier this year, my husband has been wanting to invest for years, and not that I wasn't on the bandwagon, but I just kind of was slow to get on. And I got an email from a friend about Palak and her program, and I instantly joined in January. And my goal was to have either 3 properties by the end of the year. And 3 months into the program, well, right at the end of the program, I was able to identify a property, 3 properties, 3 doors, however you want to slice it. And it was not traditional in terms of how I found it. But let me take a step back. I'm from Maryland. And I'm a Deloitte consultant. That's my full-time job. I'm a strategy manager. And prior to that, I spent 12 years in the sports industry, working for various NFL, NBA, WNBA teams. But I knew that I resonated with Palak's story, and I was like, I can't do this forever. It's not sustainable. I have 2 young boys. So we decided when we did join the program to identify an area, and we chose Baltimore. And it's been a really great experience since then. But the main reason was basically getting out of a W-2 job at some point, ideally in the next couple of years, because I'm tired.
Okay, hang on. Hairat, let me take a moment, because first of all, cool job. And so many people in this community have really cool jobs. Like, there's no question, like really cool things that people do. And there are so many reasons. You know, maybe you love what you do, you want to not do it forever. It doesn't even matter. But the thing is there are really successful people in this community. They're just doing really cool things. And sometimes the opportunity to add a stream of income, do something a little different, have maybe even a possibility sometime in the future is what is pulling all of us together here.
Yeah.
So cool job, first of all. And that real estate is kind of where you're like, okay, let me see how I can make this work. And so when did you start the program, or when were you in the program?
From January to March.
Of this year?
Mm-hmm.
Like 2023. Okay. All right. Yeah. That's very quick that you have, made this move. Okay. So it seems like I'm just hearing you talk about it, and I want to hear all about your deals, because it's more than one door that you have at this point. Yeah. What was it that was kind of going through your mind that made you act so quickly?
I think it was just, you talk about something so often, at some point you just have to pull the trigger and just jump in. And I find that I'm the type of person, if I invest in something, I'm going to give it my all. So like if you have a personal trainer, you're probably not going to slack off because you're paying by the hour to have that personal trainer. Or if you're, you want to take pictures with your family, like you're going to pay a little bit more for a great photographer to make sure you have great pictures. So like, I'm the type of person, if I invest in it, I'm going to put my all into it. And so with this program, it was a huge investment into my future, my family's future. And we've been talking about it. So it was like, okay, let's just do it.
Okay. What did you do? How many doors do you have right now? And how many did you pick up through this program?
So before starting the program, we had one conventional door. We did the traditional conventional loan, put the 20% down. Now looking back, I'm like, oh, I wish I could get that money back. But we then started the program. And at the tail end of the program, we identified a 3-family home in Baltimore. And it was a foreclosure. So we knew we had to jump on it. The foreclosure in the area was at 121 for 3 doors and raised at 368. And so we still are trying to wrap our head around how much money we made off of this deal. But we knew that it obviously worked out because the numbers were there. And that's all we based every single deal we looked at was based off of the numbers and the spreadsheet that Palak provides you. And we knew that the area was an up and coming area. It's a BC neighborhood. And that's the ideal space. We weren't thrilled about it being a 111, but
okay, 1 bedroom within okay.
But with the, the different sessions that Palak had at the time about converting, rooms into maybe 2 rooms and just getting creative, the 3rd floor was, for whatever reason, just the shape of the building, the 3rd floor lent for us to build out a 2nd bedroom. So we were able to get a 2nd bedroom out of a 1 bedroom, just on another side of the house. I think they were using it as like a living space, but we combined the dining and living space so that we could have 2 separate bedrooms on either end of the building.
Okay. So let's go back. Let's kind of go back. Okay. You live in Maryland, right? So you live in the southern part of Maryland. We talked earlier about that. How did you decide on Baltimore as a place you wanted to invest in? Let's start there. Let's kind of go back to the very beginning and then kind of move into the whole BRRRR process that you used.
I think for us, we chose Baltimore because it was safe in terms of being able to drive to it and get to it if we needed to. My husband's from outside of Philly, Pensacola area. So we thought about Philly, but Philly just isn't a feasible drive from where we are. I could get to Baltimore in an hour and 15 minutes if I needed to. And that felt safe. We also knew that Baltimore was a sleeper city. Like people think Baltimore, they're like, oh, like they think about all the movies and the shows. And, but Baltimore is one of those places where if you're reading on the Baltimore Times and staying up to date on the things that the city is trying to do, we have so many incentive programs for people like us who are interested in helping to revitalize the city, that it just made sense to kind of put some of our eggs. We're probably not going to do every property in Baltimore, but some of our eggs in Baltimore, knowing that it is a huge rental city. Like people go there for rental properties.
Yeah, because there's a lot of opportunity and people don't want to buy necessarily, but they need to be there.
Yeah,
a lot of things happening. Okay, so if you, it's close enough, like under 2 hours for you to get there, but you didn't live there. How did you find the people who helped you? Real estate people, construction people, banking people?
Yeah, so we literally followed Palak's process to a T. We had a realtor that we were working with who helped us close our first deal, but we quickly realized just going through the program that there are different types of real estate agents, and we needed one with more of an investment mindset, and not just your traditional, oh, this is the home we're going to live in mindset. And so when we identified our newest realtor, she honestly knew the city inside and out. Like she knew which blocks were going to change. She predicted like X amount of blocks were going to be different a few years ago. And like, you can already see the transitions. Like she drove us from block to block. Like she invested in us before we chose a neighborhood. And she said, that's because when you make a decision, it's on her as well. And if we don't get a property that we enjoy and like and are able to rent, it's going to come back to her and we're not going to use her again. Like she just has had that experience time and time again.
Yeah. So she educated herself. How did you find her? So you had a first real estate agent who maybe just didn't last, I guess you might say, with your new vision. How did you find this one?
Word of mouth. We started just walking the walk and talking the talk and sharing that we are investors, right? We no longer said that we are looking for properties. We shared with people, we created business cards and like would talk to friends and family members like, oh, we're real estate investors. Like didn't even talk about my W-2. And it just so happened at my job, which is ironic because I don't share that I'm a real estate investor at work, but there was a partner that I got really close with, and she shared that she had a cabin in Northern Virginia. And I was like, oh, like, how'd you find this cabin? And she's like, oh, my family has owned it, but my wife owns it as well. And she's an investor. And I was like, oh, does she do real estate? She's like, yeah, she's a real estate agent. And I was like, I would love to meet her. Anyone that can find real estate and live in it and has been doing it, I'm like, let me just meet them. One thing led to another. We clicked, and she invited us out and drove us around, and we knew that she was going to be our realtor.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It is truly a relationship. Like it really is a relationship.
Really
so when you were talking with this real estate agent that you ended up with, did you then find the other people, like the
everyone was all word of mouth. Our general contractor, we found them through our painter. We had our own personal home painted, and he did such a good job. He was so professional. He had a great website. Like it didn't feel like we were working with a bigger company. It felt like we were working with a big company, but he was just a sole like LLC guy. So I asked him, I was like, do you know any good GCs? And he was like, oh yeah, I paint buildings in DC. I work with this particular GC. Here's his number, give him a call. I spoke to him for an hour and a half. Like our first call was an hour and a half long, and he was phenomenal. And so he became our GC, and anything having to do with the rehab, he provided everything. We didn't have to really go above and beyond in that regard. And same with our lender. We looked through the list that Palak provided, and the lender that we ended up finding was a word of mouth lender through a young lady that was doing multiple nursing real estate properties in the Baltimore area. My husband's in the medical field, and he heard about her, and she said, oh yeah, I have a lender and they work really well in the city, Baltimore City. Give them a call. And so that's how we found our lender.
Oh, amazing. I mean, it really is also you putting yourself out there and saying all these things, saying that you're open to these conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
The house that you actually ended up purchasing, is it a house? It's a multifamily? Well, whatever it is, it's a multifamily. Yes. How did you find that one? How did you know this was the one?
So obviously our realtor created a search for us based on the neighborhoods that we had visited. And every time I got an alert, I was crunching numbers. I became a student at night and would go through the listing, plug in numbers. She actually sent this one to us after we had did the initial assessment. And she said she drove by the neighborhood and she noticed that on that block, there were multiple buildings that had flower pots outside. They had wreaths. You can tell that everyone on this block was kind of like connected in a way. People were sitting outside. So it was a very friendly atmosphere just by driving through it. So we decided, okay, let's look at this one and multiple other ones at the same time. Put in a couple of offers simultaneously, and this one ended up being the one that stuck.
So were these different? The one that you actually ended up getting, was it different? Because this was a triplex, it sounds like.
Yep.
Were the other ones single family?
They were single families. We did find a duplex that we really liked, not too far away from the triplex. But the number there was another triplex in an even better neighborhood, but the numbers didn't make sense.
Okay. I want to hear more about the numbers. So if you don't mind, can you just sort of talk to us how you adapted Palak's spreadsheet, all she did, because she talked about it all in the program.
Yeah.
How you adapted those learnings, those teachings into how you decided you would work with this triplex and make it work for you. Can you just kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So the numbers were low enough where I knew that with a single family, the model is you don't go above, if you don't have to, 150, 125. And you want your ARV to be significantly higher than that. And I knew for the 3 family, it was already a low number, but I needed it to appraise at a certain level to be able to pull our money out of. And it doesn't always appraise that high. But because this particular neighborhood was so close to University of Maryland, it's an up and coming neighborhood. It was a foreclosure. So we were getting it significantly lower than what it probably would have went for. We crunched the numbers and divided the 121 into 3. So like, let's say that unit was 1 family. We were like, this is a steal, right? Like to get a one single family for that number. We're like, this probably will make sense. And then we looked at the rents in the area. We wanted to make sure that for one bedroom, was there anything available? If it was, how much it was going for. And in that area, one bedrooms were going for $1,300.
Wow.
So we were like, okay, 1,300, 3 units. We're turning this one into a two unit. So that's probably going to be a little more like 1,500. The numbers in the spreadsheet, we didn't break it down like a 3-family. We kept it as if this was a 1-family and this is how much each unit was going to pay, would it still make sense? And it did. What did shock us though is how we, put the ARV together. We didn't come in that high. Like we thought the ARV was going to be like 280, 285, maybe 290. When it came back at 368, we were like, whoa, like
wow.
How did that even? But then we looked at how they chose to appraise it. And it was a lesson for us that every appraisal is different, but it's always better to be on the safe side.
Right.
I'm glad that our ARV was so significantly low and we were doing apples to apples, where I felt like the appraiser was doing apples to oranges. Like he was comparing our 3-family to a row home that just happened to have the same amount of bedrooms, but was a single family. Yeah, but it was the square footage was the same, but it was a family.
Okay.
And it was done up. Like you could tell it was a flip versus like for a rental.
Right.
But we were like, we'll take it. He did like 4 different properties and they were all kind of similar. One was similar to what we had, but the commonality between the 4 properties was square footage and bedrooms. But if you're asking, were they all duplexes, triplexes? No, they ran
all
singles, duplex, and triplex.
Well, congratulations for that. That's really incredible.
Yeah.
So I have to ask about the construction. So given that it was a foreclosure, given that maybe, I don't know. So I'd love to hear about the foreclosure and the construction and the budget that you had planned for yourself and 3 separate units. So talk about that.
So it really does boil down to your GC. And we have such a great relationship with our GC. We let them know, look, we are investors. We're not living in this home. We need this home to be a livable, nice property for another family that would like to be in this type of area. And I think that conversation of being upfront with what we were looking for really managed his expectations on how he was scoping out the rehab of this project. We've seen his work. He does high-end work. And I was like, no, we don't need marble bathroom floors. Like that's not what we're looking for, but we want this to be a very nice property and it's not a flip. So I think managing those expectations and him knowing what the ARV was potentially going to be at the 285, we scoped out $85,000 for the rehab.
For per unit or
total?
The whole thing?
Whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Whole thing.
Hang on. I'm going to get to that in a minute. So this GC that you are working with or were working with was
still working with. He's our guy.
Still working with. He's your dude. It sounds like he works with higher end homes, maybe.
Yeah.
And I have heard, and so I don't know this, but that it's kind of, they're different. It's like apples and oranges a little bit. So how was that? How did you, and I know you managed the expectations by telling him, but what was that like for him and working with him like that?
For him, it was fine because he has his own investment properties.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So he understood where I was coming from. Okay. And his construction, he has a very large construction company in the DMV area.
Oh, nice.
So they do residential, commercial, and they do luxury.
Okay.
So the luxury homes he builds from scratch, right?
Okay.
Commercial, he's doing buildings in DC. And then the residential, it would be for like individuals that have their own personal homes, but he also does investments of his own on the side. So when we had the initial hour-and-a-half conversation, I wasn't concerned about his luxury eyes because I have the same eyes. Like we get it. We like nice things. But I also asked the question up front and was very blunt about it and said, can you manage multiple rental rehabs at this type of rehab? I sent pictures from Pinterest. I was like, this is what I'd be looking for. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. He was like, those are actually the easy type of rehabs for us.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay. 85,000. How did you come up with that number? And was it, Where are you with it in it? Are you in the middle of
We're
the
done.
rehab now? Oh, okay. So how did that stack up to what it really ended up being?
So he is tough. And I feel bad because he was so disappointed. He wanted to get in and out in 60 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
That seems very ambitious.
Aggressive.
Okay. Yeah.
We were like, okay, 60
Okay, do it.
let's do it. Baltimore City is Baltimore City. It is a difficult place to work in and with. The electrical, because we had to get all new electrical. We had 2 different electrical inspectors that came and like reviewed work. One wanted it one way, another came in and said, no, not that, we want this. And so we battled those things. So that moved our timeline from 60 to another 30, and another 15. So it got a little bit longer than we anticipated, but it was simply because we were working with a very difficult city. Like Baltimore City, I've learned so much. They're just not easy to work with, even down to the gas and their water. Like it's just difficult. But he had all the, contractors that he needed to make sure he could flip and turn those things around. So I will say overall, my experience was probably if I'm grading it, it was probably like a B+ experience, but that's because it was our first like full rehab in the city of Baltimore, and Baltimore is just difficult. It had nothing to do with my GC.
No. So time-wise, it sounds like it maybe took
3.5 months.
Oh, 3.5 months. Which you know exactly
Yeah.
how long it took. Okay, so he was the one that gave you the 85,000 estimate, and did he meet it? Did he exceed it?
He did meet it, and one thing that I really appreciated about him is he was getting ready to go over, and he came to me and said, "Hey, there's a difference of 5 to 15K if we do X, Y, and Z. How do you want to proceed?" So before he even decided to go over the initial budget, we had to sit down together, him, myself, my husband, and said, how do we want to manage this? Because he is going to be a long-term GC, he decided to go over a little bit, but that cost, he said he would eat because of the situation with the electrical and like him not knowing that information before he gave us the scope. He ate the cost, but we anticipate to be able to pay that back to him on our next property.
Right, because it's an ongoing relationship, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Communication first of all, communication is huge, but it seems like it was very good with him. How did you manage that? When did you have like a certain time that you would talk to him?
So I think my job, my W-2 job, really lends well to this type of work. As a project manager with consulting, I'm constantly over communicating to clients. My husband actually finds it to be very annoying. He's like, you repeat yourself all the time. That doesn't frustrate you? And I'm like, it's part of my job. And so
you don't even hear it, right? Yeah, it's all good.
So I treated my contractor the same way. Every morning I would check in with him, which is a little bit frustrating that I had to do that, but it gave me peace of mind. Like I slept well at night. And so I asked him, like, what's the cadence? He said, you can bug me every day. It's totally up to you. Whatever you need to know, I will inform you. So I think over communicating has been really the success of this particular rehab.
And that both of you are willing to make that communication and accept it as well. I mean, I think.
Oh yeah.
Personality
he gave us
type
bad
too.
news. He's like, we have to redo the whole electrical. And in my mind, I'm like, how in the world did you not see that when we were putting the scope together? You just couldn't open the wall, right? Like there's only so much you can do during a walkthrough. And when he opened the walls, he was like, holy moly, this electrical system is not to code. It's not going to pass an inspection. And we had a very strict lender that you couldn't get your money until those inspections were passed at each stage. And I personally, looking back on it, I'm so grateful that our lender is that rigid, because now there's no concerns about how our tenants are going to feel.
Right. And since it's going to be a property that you have for a long time, you have that peace of mind knowing that however many years down the road, it still will be a property that works for you. So I want to talk, we're going to talk about your lender in just a minute, but as far as the electrical issue that you had mentioned, did that add to the budget or was it padded? So
he padded it to the budget.
Okay. So it was okay for you in terms of like a final number.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What he didn't really pad into the number, the inspector for the lender made a comment about the fire escape behind the house. And he said, I don't think this will pass if it's not updated when you're doing your final inspection. Not inspection for the city, but inspection for the lender.
For the lender.
So we didn't even think of that. We're just going to paint it and call it a day. And he was like, no. Like, this fire escape needs to be pulled out, re-drilled, put back in. Steps need to be working. Like, and I was like, oh, I thought we were just going to paint it and drill it in, but that's not the case.
No. Okay. So as you're talking about this and you're smiling, and I love to see it, it's part of it, right? The electrical that you need to replace completely, the X, Y, and Z that you need to do, the fire escape, all of that. How were you at the time? Because now you're smiling, but how were you at the time? And how did you get through that?
I was a mess. I didn't cry, which is a good thing because I'm a very emotional person, but I was frustrated. I felt bamboozled a bit. Like, what do you mean this wasn't part? Like, how did you not? I didn't get it, right? Because I'm not a contractor. And I felt that we did our due diligence by having him walk through and trying to get all the information about the property prior. And people were living there before the foreclosure. So for us, we were like, how many people living there?
Yeah.
If all of this stuff wasn't up to code, little did we know that there's so many properties in Baltimore that they don't go through due diligence. They don't follow code. They just get people in. Slumlords are a thing. Like, it really, really is a thing, especially in a city like Baltimore. We wanted to change that narrative. So we were like, let's do everything we need to do to provide a safe and comfortable environment for our future tenants. And we can't do that if we're going to cut corners. So as frustrating as it was, we just had to bite the bullet. And
I love what you just said. And Palak, I know you want to respond to something here. Yes.
I appreciate your vulnerability, Hairat, so much here, because I think when people see investors progress, whether your first deal, 10th deal, 50th deal, there's always challenges, and some of them can really stop you from growing further. And most people only see the results. And so I love that you were open about a tough day, a tough moment, when you were like, hey, I didn't cry, but that was all that was left at that point. I would love to know, how did you go from there to the other side? Because I think that's the shift that is super helpful when anybody else is in that position. And, as I said, it doesn't matter what deal number you're at. This is a useful skill to acquire at any given point in time, because the stakes are only going to get bigger, right?
Yeah.
What Cheryl said the other day, another level, another devil.
Oh, new level, new devil.
New level, new devil, right? So this is a skill you want to constantly work on. Right?
I don't know how many people feel this way on this call. I have a very high burn, stressful work situation. And I have 2 small boys. One is on a field trip right now. I can't go because I carved out, 2 hours for this call. And as soon as I'm done with this, I'm jumping on another client call. I'm doing reports. Anyone who's in consulting knows your PowerPoint is only as good as the $1 million deal you just sold. Like, it seems so simple. I'm tired, right? Like, I'm 36, but I'm tired. Like, I would love to retire tomorrow and spend like the rest of my life providing safe, comfortable homes for generations, right? Like, that's my motivation. So even in that moment, I'm like, Hairat, this is just one step to a bigger picture so that you can attend your son's, basketball game in the middle of Iowa one day, or he wants to travel for soccer internationally. Guess what? No one's stopping you. You're not clocking in, clocking out. And so I had to keep like my why in the back of my mind. And luckily my husband, like, he has a very stressful job. He's in anesthesia. So he always reminds me, no one died. Like, that's like, like, that mindset is also something that I keep in mind, because at the end of the day, no one died. No one dies on my watch during anything with my full-time job. No one died during this construction. No one died. Like, there's so much more going on. Like, it's not worth my stress.
Yeah.
And the crying is not going to fix anything. So get your logical hat on and just press forward.
I
So
love that
love
so
that.
much. My grandmother used to say this, by the way. My grandfather was a freedom fighter, and like they saw the worst possible situation when the British ruled India. And my grandmother used to say, she passed away a few years ago. She used to say, what's the worst case that can happen? They're not going to cut your head off, are they? And like, when you're in that moment, it's so hard to imagine that it's not the worst possible situation, right? Like, because you're in it. But then when you like step back, like you said, your husband says, no one died. And you're like, wait, this could be much worse.
it could be. And I want freedom from W-2. Like, and I could stay at my W-2, but I want the option.
Of course. I think that's all we want, right? It's just that, you might love what you do on certain days, but not every day. And it could be cool to one day do something different.
Yeah.
And the stress of your own business it hits so different than the stress of being a consultant and somebody else's $1 million deal, right? Like, at least it's yours, right?
It's yours.
Yes, exactly.
It's for your own deal.
Exactly.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. We need to get to numbers though, because Hairat, where are you in the process? So all the rehab is done, right? The rehab is completely finished. Where are you in this whole thing?
Refinancing.
So you're refinancing right now?
Yeah. So we're trying to pull just the money we put in. We're going to keep all of it in there. Anything extra, we're not going to take anything extra out. Pay off our HELOC.
Okay.
Do it again. We've already identified multiple properties that we probably will put in an offer once we get like the verbal, like our refi is good to go, just so that we can move on to the next deal. We're going to diversify our portfolio between row homes and triplexes, because there's a lot of triplexes, but we know that when it comes to offloading, it's easier to offload of a single family.
Right. Okay. So as far as the financing part of it, what would you care to share about that? Like, is it a hard money lender? I don't think it's conventional. I think you're
No, it's not conventional. We decided not to use any of our own money. So we took out a HELOC on our current property, $60,000, and that's all we were going to have. No additional money. None of my money.
That's all it is. Like, that's all you get, kind of thing, right?
All we get is 60 grand. And if we can't make it work, next property. So we wanted to be very disciplined in that, because it's easy to be like, oh, let's pull from here to make it more to get this deal, or let's pull from here. And it was like, no, we have 2 small boys. They need whatever extra funds we have poured into them. We're also trying to save. We're also trying to do other things. So the HELOC was great. We got it at a great interest rate through a, what's it called? The smaller banks. I'm drawing a blank.
Credit union.
Credit union. Yep. So a local credit union did our HELOC. And with that 60, we did use all 60 for this deal.
But no more than 60.
No more than 60. We ended up getting an American Express business credit card, so that again, if anything was to come up, it would be on a business credit card and still not have anything to do with us. We have an LLC for the property. And we decided that once the HELOC is paid off with this refinance, we would just rinse and repeat and do it again.
Okay, great. So then you used the HELOC. You didn't have to go to another hard money lender, or you didn't have to go anywhere else, actually.
No, we did. No, we used a hard money lender because we were first time hard money lenders. They made us put down.
Oh, I see.
You had to put down, I think it was 15% of the property, and then plus closing. It ended up getting really close to that 60. There might be like a little bit left in there. Oh no. And then we had to fund the first draw. So that's why we ended up using all 60.
I gotcha.
Funded the first draw. So we got that back, the funding of the first draw, but we ended up having to put money down for the property, 15%. But this lender, since we did a deal with them and it happened to be 3 doors, it's up for them is three doors. They don't really care. So now we go down to 5%.
Oh, that's amazing. That is amazing.
And then eventually it will be 0%. So that's why we're sticking to this lender.
Like, again, I feel like a pattern, like you're sticking with the people you have come to trust. And then now you have an office, like, right? Like you have an office. Palak, what is that? Your question?
I was going to ask, so you brought, for your hard money lender, you brought 15% down to the table for your first deal. Love it.
Yeah.
And then I usually don't, I mean, your first draw, you get that back anyway, as soon as the work is done. So we eliminate that, but 15% is not bad for brand new investor. That's pretty amazing. Now it's 5%. You only bring 5%. Is it acquisition plus construction 5% or 5% just of acquisition?
5% of just acquisition.
You brought 15% of only acquisition down for your first deal. That is amazing.
Yeah,
That is amazing.
None of that was available, by the way, for new.
But he said, and I'm grateful we met this particular lender. It's our credit score that saved us.
Yeah.
It was our credit score between my husband and I. Like they actually behaved like a traditional bank. That's one thing we did not enjoy. So although you're saying, wow, 15, the amount of paperwork, we're like, are we getting a conventional loan? Yeah, I'll share the lender with you guys. Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting. I feel like the more people always ask me, and this is why I popped in to talk about it. People always say like, oh, you said exactly 25K is what you're going to need. It's a rough ballpark number. It depends on your credit score. It depends on your income. It depends on how much effort you're willing to put into the lender, into finding lenders, into contacting different lenders, and into working with a lender that might be a pain in the butt to work with, but they let you bring very little to the table, right? It depends on so many different factors, how much money you bring. 15% of acquisition as a brand new investor, that's
very good.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
And then 5% after that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And but I will say, the paperwork is no joke. It's like doing it's like doing your own. The paperwork was like a regular home.
Yeah.
Like he wanted my husband's life, my life. They're like, he has 1099, but he has W-2. We need all of it. And we're like, why?
Yeah.
Hard money. They didn't care.
Yeah.
And
so be aware for that. Like be aware for the time that it takes. Right. Yeah.
But you made money by not having to bring a lot to the table. So that's pretty awesome. That was
definitely.
So the refi process that you're underway in right now, where is that? Or like
So we submitted all the paperwork because again, in order to refi, we found another lender to refi with. The current lender who we received the money from, they require all of your inspections, all of those things before they could give you your letter of completion. And the new lender is just as difficult and requires all of that. But if all goes well, we'll have 75%. Yes.
Wow.
So that's why we're dealing with the pain.
Yeah. You're putting the work in.
We're putting the work in. It may be slowing us down a bit because of the nuances, but we feel like it's worth it. So
how detail oriented are you? Like, is this like your wheelhouse?
I would say I'm detail oriented for things that matter to me. Like, and I've been a consultant for 1.5 years now. Before I was in the sports industry, and I would say being in consulting makes me even more detail oriented. Yeah. But I will never get over the fact that like we spend too much time on PowerPoint. So like there are things where I'm like,
right, like no,
this doesn't add up. Like I just had a 30-minute call about PowerPoints, but I think I'm more detail oriented now, and because this is money that has interest on it, it's making me even more detail oriented and tracking of everything, because money out, I'm paying for that money to be out, and so I don't want it to be out longer than it needs to.
I mean, there's literally a cost. There's literally cost to these dollars, pennies, dimes, whatever. You had said earlier, I can't remember if it was when we were recording or before, but you had said that the program was instrumental in helping you get to this point. Yeah. Can you talk about some specific things that people here can kind of refer back to and be like, okay, this is what I did. This is what I did. That kind of thing to help move forward.
For me, it was the mindset shift. The first couple of modules, getting your mindset in the right place in order to stick to doing something like this. Even if you had properties before, again, we had one property a conventional way, but we didn't do our due diligence. Like we bought a turnkey property, and every time I think about that property, I'm just like, we spent so much money on that property. And it's
I've done it too, by the way.
But it's not going to be as much as a monthly return as this one. And so just following all of the strategies that Pollock put in place really helped me stay organized and move things forward. Because I think I knew what I wanted to do, but now it's like I have a process and I stick to that process. And if anything outside of that process, I may be able to bend, but I don't have to because I have a process and it works.
Yeah. So basically everything.
Yeah. I would say the mindset was the first one for me though. Like just having the right mindset and why you're going into this and deciding like, what is your why? Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah. You mentioned it slightly earlier, but now I kind of want to get a clear answer as far as what happens next. Like so you are looking, because you're in the refi. So have you, do you have renters already in there?
Yeah. So we have two renters, and the third, we're being a little bit rigid on who we put in there just from initial experience. I'd rather it sit empty than get somebody, and plus the two people are already paying my mortgage. So
so you're kind of okay. You can
but I think we know we want to continue. The goal is to get another triplex at least before the end of the year. So the ones that we're looking at, if we're able to put in an offer in the next 2-3 weeks, we'll probably do that.
Okay. So you are actively looking, like you're,
we're on to the next one. Yeah.
Okay. Sophia, how many properties do you have right now? Says holding costs are a thing. You're moving correctly from the start. That is really good. Like really, really good. And Trevor has a question. Did you have renters in during the other units rehab? How did you manage that?
No, we did not move anyone in until everything was done.
Okay. So everything is done.
Yeah.
And can you talk more about what it looks like at the end? So you said you have 2 1-bedrooms and then 1 2-bedroom. Is that right? And like, what did you actually rehab? Like, was it huge? Was it cosmetic? Was it?
So it was a little bit of cosmetics. It was a lot of cosmetics, actually. It was all of the electrical, all of the plumbing, anything that couldn't be seen got done. We were completely gutted the basement because we turned the basement into storage units and we put washer and dryers down there. We decided not to put washers and dryers in each of the units because they're already so small in our opinion. Yeah. So we have coin laundry downstairs. So we'll be making money off of that. And then we also did the roof. So we made sure that the roof was up to par and everything. And then we did the backyard, we did the stairwell. And so we did all of the staircases outside, like within going from unit to unit, because those were in shambles. Like it literally looked like someone was going to fall through it. So we had to do that. We didn't know that it was going to be so expensive, but that one was actually pretty expensive. That staircase in the back of the house.
That is interesting. It's something good to remember.
Yeah, because the home, they're old. So like those wood planks and all that stuff you see, we can't get that again, right? So you either rip it or you like patch it together. And thank goodness our GC was very creative, but like that piece was very expensive.
Yeah.
Like painting, cosmetic, all that was fine. But the steps were pretty intense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something good to keep in mind. Palak has a great question. So you've mentioned that you're looking, like you are looking right now, possibly a triplex, but what's your big goal? Where do you want to be 5 years from now?
5 years, have work be optional. If not definitely for me. And my husband can continue to work. His job is scalable. He can dial back, dial up. I don't have that luxury in my role, but also have at least 30 doors in 5 years.
Highly inspirational. For those of you joining us, please let us know some takeaways that you've gotten from Hairat. And we appreciate you just sharing everything, just really sharing the ups and some of the downs. And, you've really talked about some challenges, right? From the fire escape to the electrical to, just kind of figuring all the things out as far as finding the people. Did anything surprise you? Maybe about yourself even.
I'm more bullish than I thought I would be. Like, I'm more of like, this needs to get done now type of person. And I knew I had it in me, but I definitely let it out a few times.
That's powerful. That is powerful. And it gives you this confidence. It's like, I can, if I can do a triplex in 2023, then I can do goodness knows what in 2024. Pradeep says, thanks for the Maryland market experience and details on lender and GC experiences. Yeah, I mean, that I love what you have been able to share, because if you think about this kind of relationship that you're trying to build, it takes work. And I can clearly see that you've done that. Like, it's like not something you left to chance.
No, not at all. I asked the awkward question and I was okay with not getting the answer I wanted.
Wait, which awkward question?
Like,
All of them?
this job, like no one wants to be that upfront because it makes you like seem a certain way. No, can you do this or not? Like, it's just very simple. And I was okay asking those questions.
I love that. Deanne says, from one management consultant to another, it's nice to see the project management skills are being put to use for something that keeps you away from the grind of consulting. Burnout is real.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so new to it. I'm only a year and a half in. So I can't imagine those who've been doing consulting for the past, 10 plus years. Like, kudos to you guys.
Well, I mean, the brain work it takes, right? The brain work and then the travel, all of that. Andrew says, this has been great. Your goals of optional W-2 is right where I'm at, and how the program helped you with mindset is spot on. I love that you use the quote of be comfortable being uncomfortable. Me too. Kendra says, everything has been so helpful. Thank you. Anne and Randy Betts, your numbers were inspiring. Good for all to know that good deals are possible in the market. Yeah, that's a really good point.
I will say with the numbers, Anne and Randy, hey guys, I remember you guys from when I first started. I think those numbers are only true for my triplex. I don't think I'm going to see that number if I pull the trigger on the row home that I'm looking at right now. I just don't think so.
Something happened for you.
It's a big building, right? Like, if one person was living in there, they're living in a huge home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's the triplex that got our number there. That's what I will say for that.
Yeah. But you were there, right time, right place, right opportunity, right things. Right ducks in a row.
Foreclosure, like, it's always risky to get a foreclosure because they can make you wait. You'll sign and then you may not get the house released to you for like 2, 3, 4 months. Like, there might be some stuff going on. We got it right away.
So did you do something special to avoid that, or it just happened?
I think it just happened to us. And we also have an aggressive realtor. Like, she's awesome.
Yeah. Note to self, aggressive realtor. Any other last words for Hairat? I mean, just a thank you.
Yeah. This has been great. It's nice to sit back and kind of reflect on all that I've worked on these past couple of months and share it with people that actually will act on it. I have lots of friends that want to do it and they hear our stories and like it falls on deaf ears. So I'm excited to see what everyone has to do.
I love that. And I love what you just said, because you can talk about it to anybody. But if you talk about it to the right audience, then it can really make an impact.
Oh, yeah, 100%.